Hello everyone. We have started with the chapter D and F block elements. In this, we have covered mainly introductory part and how exactly they are placed in the periodic table, what is the electronic configuration, how does the transition elements belong, different how do they exhibit a kind of different oxidation states we have seen, and many of the things we have covered with respect to D and F block elements. In today's class, let us have a discussion regarding the catalytic properties of transition elements. We discussed regarding the catalyst in the chapter surface chemistry. What exactly the meaning of catalyst? Catalyst is nothing but is a kind of chemical compound which proceeds or which it may enhance or it increases the speed of the reaction. That is called as catalyst, and it remains inert after the reaction get completes. It doesn't get involved in the reaction. Fine, that is called as catalyst. Now here these transition elements, say for example D block elements itself, they are called as transition elements because of DD transition. There is a coloring property also exhibited by these D block elements, that is mainly because of presence of unpaired electrons. We have seen 3D itself. If you consider the example, in 3D elements itself, we will see a variable oxidation states, as well as we have completely filled, exactly half filled, and incompletely filled orbitals are present. Due to presence of those unpaired electrons itself, coloring property is exhibited, because those unpaired electrons will grab or they absorb the energy from the atmosphere and they will move to excited state. Once they move to excited state, they will be unstable in that state. In order to get stability back, they will be liberating certain amount of energy in the visible region and they will coming back to the ground state. While coming back to the ground state, whatever the energy is being liberated from them in the visible region, we all see in the form of color. That is nothing but coloring property of D block elements, and due to DD transition itself, all of them, they are referred as transition elements. Do remember, the question on the transition elements can be asked for 2 marks. This is all about the transition elements, and in future, in the sense in next part of the chapter also we discuss in detail regarding the coloring property. Fine. Now let us come back to the catalytic property of transition elements. There are mainly two reasons we have to remember. Mainly two reasons we have to remember, and both the reasons must be written for the catalytic property if it is going to ask for 2 marks. What are those reasons? Why does these transition elements will be considered as catalyst? See here. The very first, as I told you, the variable oxidation states. Variable oxidation states is mainly because of, I explained in the beginning of this chapter, the N-1D subshell and NS subshell do not have higher energy difference. I repeat once again this one because it is most important. If you get clear with this point, the next part of the chapter will be very easy for you. See here, there are N-1D orbitals are involving here, as well NS orbitals. In the sense, these electrons are involving in transition elements for the bond formation. Due to very less energy gap between these, the NS electrons can jump here and D electrons can also be jumping here. There will be a movement of electrons between. As there is a movement of electrons, it has lower energy, but still electrons from this one can jump to the NS orbital. Okay, so due to that reason, what happens, not only NS electrons but also the N-1D electrons, it may be up to 10. 1 to 10 electrons are there. All the electrons can participate for the bond formation. Due to participation of N-1D electrons as well NS electrons, number of electron cloud increases. Getting what I am telling you? Example, I will tell you scandium itself with the atomic number 21. It will be having 3D1, 4s2. Argon 3D1, 4s2. Isn't it? So 18 plus 2, 20 and 1. If you consider this element, we can make use of these 2 electrons, as well we can make use of d electrons also. If you are going to make use of only these valence electrons, it will be scandium plus 2. Not only scandium plus 2 is existed, but still we have scandium plus 3 existence also. That means one of the electron which is present in D can also be taken away from the scandium. Getting what I am telling you? So, this is an example I have shown here. Like this, all the transition elements will be showing us different oxidation states. So, that means variable oxidations present here, and due to that itself, these all transition elements can be considered as catalyst. They exhibit a kind of catalytic property. First point, you have to mention this one in the examination. If it is being asked for your 2 marks, there is a maximum chance is there to ask this question for your board examination. Then we have the next point, that is large or suitable surface area. Large or suitable surface area. What exactly the meaning of surface area? This also we have discussed in the chapter surface chemistry. More the surface area if you want, smaller must be the molecules or smaller must be the atoms. And due to presence of variable oxidation states, also it has, in the sense these transition elements have a suitable surface area. They provide higher surface area for adsorption process or the next process to carry out. Surface area in the sense, I have given you one of the example. If you just take one molecule, it will be having a fixed surface area like this. These are the atoms which are present on it. If you cut open this one, you will going to get 2 types of molecules wherein you can have a larger surface area than that of the previous one. So like this, these elements, transition elements, will provide higher surface area due to variable oxidation states, and as they provide higher surface area, these transition elements can be considered as a very good catalyst. And example also we can consider here, the various transition elements, how do they have been working as a catalyst in different processes. Very first one I have written here, example. These 2 are the reasons why these transition elements exhibit catalytic property. Then these are the examples where all we can make use of these transition elements for acting as a catalyst. Vanadium pentoxide, V2O5. You might have seen this one in the chapter P block elements we discussed. But as it is not there for your examination, but can be asked for your competitive examination, that vanadium pentoxide will be acting as a very good catalyst for the process of contact process for the preparation of sulfuric acid. It will be acting as a catalyst which increases, enhances, speed up the reaction for the forward direction, and itself remains unreacted, and we can be taken it away after the reaction as it is. That is called as catalyst. Vanadium pentoxide is one of the good catalysts used in the process of manufacture of sulfuric acid by contact process. Right? Can you agree with me that vanadium is kind of transition element which comes in a 3D series? Scandium, titanium, vanadium. Vanadium is the catalyst we can make use here. This is the one example or first example. Go for the second example. Let us see here. Iron. This at least I have given you clear flowchart for this, even with a diagrammatic explanation in the chapter P block elements regarding the process of Haber's process, manufacture of ammonia, right? So iron is used as a catalyst for the Haber's process, right? Then we have nickel. Nickel also is going to be used as a catalyst for hydrogenation of oil. we can consider certain olefins. Oil forming compounds are also called as olefins. In the olefins, if you having double bond and if you are going to hydrogenate with the help of catalyst like nickel or palladium, also we can consider. Nickel or palladium catalyst are going to give us respective hydrocarbons. That there also we discussed in the first PUC chapter hydrocarbons. We have come across these reactions and we are here. So these are the three examples. These are the two reasons why transition elements exhibit catalytic property. Do remember the things clearly. So these are the importance. Note down. We will be moving to the next. Welcome dear students. Now let us discuss regarding interstitial compounds. Can you know the particular meaning of the term interstitial? Interstitial in the sense, we have seen in the solid state, we will be arranging molecules with the help of atoms in a linear fashion. We will be keeping one side of the particularly atoms above which again we will be keeping the one more side. Do you remember that? See here, I will show you with a diagrammatic explanation. This is first one, this is second one, this is third, and this is fourth, and so on. We will be arranging the atoms. Likewise, see here, I have second row of arrangement of atoms. This is the second row, right? Likewise, if you arrange two rows, you will be left with certain space in between the arrangement of two atoms. This space which is present in between these atoms is called as interstitial space or interstitial site. This interstitial site will be exhibited by, it is present in transition elements. The metals which are considered as transition elements exhibit a kind of interstitial sites. And these interstitial sites are such that they accommodate or they give a space to accommodate non-metals like carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen and boron and so on. They will allow certain space for a small non-metals like these and they will be trapped inside the interstitial sites. And when these non-metals are existed with the transition metals, they will show a different kind of property as that of the transition metal. ಇದೊಂದು ಸರಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ, ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊರಿ. ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಷನ್ ಮೆಟಲ್ ಅಥವಾ ಡಿ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾವು? ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್, ಜಾಗ ಕೊಡ್ತಾವು. ಯಾವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಜಾಗ ಕೊಡ್ತಾವು? ಕಾರ್ಬನ್, ಹೈಡ್ರೋಜನ್, ನೈಟ್ರೋಜನ್, ಬೋರಾನ್ ಇರುವಂಥ ಆ ಥರ ಇರುವಂಥ ನಾನ್ ಮೆಟಲ್ಸ್ ಬಂದು ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೆ ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಅ ಸೈಟ್. That site is called as interstitial site. Getting what I am telling you? Now these carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, boron can be trapped in this space. When they come and attach or they come and settle on the site, the property, initially transition elements in the property ಏನಿತ್ತಲ್ಲ, that property is going to be changed. Property change ಆಗ್ತದೆ. In the sense, if you consider melting point, ಇನಿಷಿಯಲಿ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಷನ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡ್ರಿ, ಅದರದ್ದು ಮೆಲ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಎಷ್ಟಿತ್ತು? ಸೇ ಅರೌಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ 110 ಡಿಗ್ರಿ. ವೆನ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟ್ರ್ಯಾಪಿಂಗ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ನಾನ್ ಮೆಟಲ್ಸ್ ಟ್ರ್ಯಾಪ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ವೇಟ್ ಆರ್ ಮಾಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್. ಯಾವಾಗ ಮಾಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ವೇಟ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ತೈತಲ್ಲ, ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಮೆಲ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸಸ್, ರೈಟ್? That is nothing but the property of transition element is going to be varied after interstitial site is being trapped. That is what I wanted to tell you. Now, this is general way we have understood. Now, coming to the chemical way, let us see the definition. This question can be asked for 1 to 2 marks. See here. So, interstitial compounds are those in which a small non-metals like carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, boron are trapped in the interstitial site of a transition metal. I repeat, these are the, in the sense, interstitial compounds are those compounds which have which allow small non-metals like carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen and boron, they are going to be trapped in the interstitial sites of a transition metal. This is the simple definition. Now they show a kind of different property as that of the parent metal. What are those properties? Retain their metallic property like metallic cluster and conductivity. We know all the metals generally exhibit metallic cluster and conductivity. Even after trapping of these non-metals in the interstitial site, they will continue their property as before. Metallic property, that is metallic cluster formation, and conductivity will be proceeded as it is before they used to do. Okay, and then one more point, these interstitial compounds are considered to be chemically inert. They doesn't undergo any high range of difference when they chemically reacted with any other molecules. Second point. Third one, they have got high melting point than the corresponding metals. As I told you, they have got high melting point than the previous metallic melting point. Fine. Last point, they will become extremely hard and rigid. Due to availability of interstitial site, before trapping of these non-metals, we can have a low melting point, right? Because there is a space in between the interatomic molecules. Due to that space, a small amount of energy is required to break the bond between them. But when the interstitial sites have been occupied by non-metals, what will happen here? The site is going to be blocked, and due to blockage of that site, the strong bond formation will be seen as previously that of metals. Metals will show very weak type of, because of presence of this gap. Can you see this gap here? See, due to presence of this gap, they show not so much of strength as that of interstitial compounds shows. Here, due to strong bonding of these compounds, they show a higher melting point. Due to blockage of that site, they also show a kind of hard and rigidness than that of the metal property. Understood? Now examples. Titanium hydride, cobalt boride and iron hydride can be considered as interstitial compounds. This interstitial property of transition elements will also allow us to make a various alloys, a mixing of, that is small size also we can see here, and due to variable oxidation states, different elements combine each other. Different elements will combine each other, and after combination of two types of elements, we can have a property of both the elements in one go of that compound, which is prepared by combination of two different elements, is going to be referred as an alloy. So we will discuss that one in a later part. Do copy this one. It's the most important. We'll move to the next. Dear students, now let us have a brief discussion with respect to alloys. As I told you, alloys formation can be possible with the help of transition elements. When you consider transition elements, generally they show a similar type of the atomic sizes, right? And one of the transition element which is in combination with any other can be easily replaced. Replacing of one transition element with that of the other is very easy in case of transition elements due to participation of Ns and N-1d electrons. So, and interstitial space, what I explained, that also one of the prominent property which we can make use for the formation of alloys. Now see here, when you consider characteristics of the alloys, that is combination of two or more metals, and the metallic property which is exhibited by fixed metal is going to be altered by making it with combining with other metals or other element. Then the strength or the property or the feasibility which was there with a particular metal is going to be enhanced. ಫಸ್ಟಿಗೆ ಏನಿರ್ತೈತಲ್ಲ ಮೆಟಲ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟಿ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಇರ್ತೈತಿ, ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂಥರ ಮೆಟಲಿಕ್ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟಿ ಇದೆ ಎಕ್ಸಿಬಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತೈತಿ. ಬಟ್ ವೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಕಂಬೈನ್ಸ್ ವಿತ್ ದ ಅದರ್ ಮೆಟಲ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಅದರ್ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್, ಆ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟಿ ಏನು ಎಕ್ಸಿಬಿಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿರ್ತಲ್ಲ ಅದನ್ನ ಇನ್ನೂ ನಾವು ಸ್ಟ್ರೆಂಥನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೆಂಥನ್ ಇಟ್ and we can also introduce a new type of the property for that particular metal combination. Getting? So those are that combination of two or more type of the elements, so the metals together itself is going to be referred as alloy process, a formation of alloy. We'll see what are the characteristics for alloys. They are generally hard, they are hard in nature, they will show high tensile strength as that of the metal, and they are more corrosion resistant. They cannot be easily corroded. Jaldi adu enagangilla, tukku hattalla, jang hattangilla. That property can be introduced due to alloy formation. We have certain examples, and do remember students, out of these one question can be asked for 1 marks. Stainless steel is a combination of iron, carbon, chromium and nickel. Similarly, we have amalgam. Amalgam, generally main element present it is mercury, Hg. With the other small traces of other metals will be combining with this and to form an amalgam. Then we have brass is a combination of copper and zinc. Lastly, we have bronze is a combination of copper and tin. These two are important, can be asked for 1 marks. So this is all about the alloys. Do copy this. We'll move to next. Welcome dear students. So this is a kind of 3-mark question wherein they will ask you how manufacture of potassium dichromate is done. Manufacture of potassium dichromate from chromate iron, chromate ore. So it mainly involves 3 steps. So what are those 3 steps? I'll inform you. Before to that one, here we will be having ore of particularly chromate. Chromate ore must be taken very first and it should be heated to excess of air. We have to consider excess of air along with the presence of sodium carbonate. When these 3 reactant molecules are heated to the highest value of air, in presence of high air, we are going to obtain sodium chromate. Sodium chromate which is obtained here is said to be yellow in color. So FeCrO4 treated with sodium carbonate in excess air, we are going to obtain sodium chromate. Remember the sodium chromate formula Na2CrO4 and it is yellow in color. Once this sodium chromate which is obtained here must be taken away from this one and it should be filtered. It will be filtered, then the filtered sodium chromate should be treated with acidification process we have to carry out. For acidification process, we are going to add up sulfuric acid. When this sodium chromate added with the sulfuric acid, we are going to obtain sodium chromate in a orange color. Change of color is going to be seen, right? So Na2CrO7 from sodium chromate we have obtained here orange colored compound. Fine. So after this one, when Na2Cr2O7 obtained is going to be treated with potassium chloride, we are going to obtain an end product in the form of crystals, that is potassium dichromate. There are 3 steps are involved here and 3 steps, each step carries 1 mark and this is said to be 3-mark question, can be asked for your examination. That is manufacture of potassium dichromate from the chromate ore. Moving to the next part, dear students, we have here, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that in the previous video, that is previous part only, we have seen chromate ion formation and dichromate formation. Sodium chromate is going to form first. Then what I had written in the next step, that is 3rd step, it is referred as sodium dichromate. There were 2 chromate atoms were there, so it is considered to be sodium dichromate. Now I have drawn here picture. With this you can clearly understand. Structure for the chromate ion. You have seen how to write these skeletal structure and how to fill the atoms in particular set of molecule. In this molecule, this we discussed writing the skeletal structure and the p block elements we have discussed there. Similarly, we have to make use of the same concept and we apply here. Chromate ion, if you consider, it is CrO4 2 minus. Remember, only one Cr is present, then this is chromate ion. If two Cr, that is chromium 2 atoms are present, then it is dichromate. So with respect to chromate ion, it will be written at the center, and there are 4 oxygen atoms are directly bonded, and the whole molecule carries -2 charge. We know that where exactly this charge, which oxygen atom possesses this charge, and where should we need to put the double bond. If you just remove this one, if you remove this bracket, where exactly this charge should be placed and which oxygen atom will be carrying double bond, single bond, and all those things we have discussed in the part of formal charge. Formal charge ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಕಲ್ತಿರಿ ನೀವು first year PUC you have learned regarding that one in chapter chemical bonding. Chemical bonding ಒಳಗ formal charge calculate ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನ ಕಲ್ತಿದಿರಲ್ಲ. On that concept we have written this structure here. Why ma'am, why you have written 2 minus here? The answer is when we go further checking the formal charge for these atoms present here, we will come to know where we can place double bond for the oxygen atom and what are those 2 oxygen atoms carries this -2 charge we will identify. But just remember, all those in detail is not required for you. Remember, chromate ion has chromium at the center and is bonded by 4 oxygen atoms. They, can you see, they are just represented or written in the form of tetrahedral. Because the structure is important, you have to remember this one. Then we have structure for the dichromate ion. Dichromate ion, remember, 2 chromium are directly bonded to 1 oxygen atom. 2 chromium are flanked by 1 oxygen atom. Then we have got to know for each we have written on 1 oxygen atoms. And bond angle seems to be 126 degrees. From CR bond angle seems to be 126 degrees, and the bond picometer for oxygen to chromium it is 179 picometer. From chromium to oxygen it is 163, and that bond length what I have written here is respectively same for all. OCR 179 picometer, OCR 179 picometer. Likewise, 163 picometer of CRO bond is same for all the CRO from this side as well this side. So this is a structure for sodium dichromate. Do copy these two, can be asked for 1 to 2 marks. Coming to the next point, that is KMnO4, potassium permanganate. So these potassium permanganate, and previously what we discussed, that is potassium dichromate, will be generally used as, uses if you consider, they are generally used as good oxidizing agents. Right? I'll quote some of the uses of both of them at the last of this portion, but I'm telling you here only because they will be acting as a good oxidizing agents. And if you particularly consider potassium dichromate, it is used for chrome tanning of the leather. In the tanning of the leather will be very soft in nature, right? We will be making use of leather bags, leather shoes, leather slippers, and so on. Leather made, some of the items we will be using. When pure leather, if you consider, it is very soft in nature. In order to make that leather somehow harder, we will be making use of the tanning process. In tanning process, generally potassium dichromate can be used. That is called as chrome tanning for the leathers. Okay. And then coming to the next part, that is potassium permanganate. This is a question can be asked for 2 to 3 marks. That is manufacture of potassium permanganate. We are studying this one is mainly because we have Mn is a transition element present. Now see here, how does the manufacture of potassium permanganate is done. When you consider K2MnO4 is going to be treated, it is acidified. In presence of acid, it is going to form KMnO4 along with the formation of MnO2 plus H2O. Water is liberated and K plus ion is separated off from the reactant molecule. Similarly, in the step 2 or next step, if you consider the KMnO4 part which is taken here initially, it has formed as respective MnO4. If you ionize this one, you are going to get the MnO4, and that MnO4 2 ion minus 2 ion is further treated with acid. It is acidified. There we are going to obtain permanganate ion. There is a difference in the structure of the manganate and permanganate ion. I have drawn here, I will explain it. But do remember these two steps wherein we have obtained manganate ion, which is further treated with the potassium. We are going to obtain respective potassium permanganate. Then going to the structure, you have seen here, there are two oxygen atoms bonded by two charges. So this is MnO4 2 minus MnO4 2 minus molecule it is, which is called as manganate. If you just look at the, take the picture, you will be having tetrahedral shape for this one, and it is existed in green color. Likewise, if you coming to the permanganate ion, you can see here there are triple bonds. That is one double bond, second bond, third bond. There are 3 oxygen atoms, each with a double bond, and 1 oxygen with a negative charge existed in the purple color. It is called as permanganate ion. So manganate ion and permanganate ion have the difference in their structure. So these are the two steps, important steps. Do remember for the preparation of KMnO4. Do copy this. We'll move to next. Coming to the uses of KMnO4, it will be act as a powerful oxidizing agent. As I already told you, a strong oxidizing agent can be used as a KMnO4, as well we can make use of potassium dichromate also. Then we have next point regarding this KMnO4 generally used in volumetric analysis. We have done many of the titrations. In the titration part, generally we make use of potassium permanganate and potassium dichromate. Then we have qualitative analysis. In the qualitative analysis means what type of the element is present in that, particularly detection of elements. There also we can make use of potassium permanganate. Bayer's reagent, it's a chemical reagent wherein we generally make use of alkaline KMnO4 solution. Alkaline KMnO4 solution, referred as Bayer's reagent, will be used in many of the chemical reactions. Then we have bleaching agent. It can also be act as a bleaching agent which decolorizes the presence of color is going to be decolorized by using this one, right? Bleaching agent. It bleaches cotton, textiles and so on. It will be used as a decolorization of oils. So these are certain examples of KMnO4. Do copy this. We'll move to next.